Welcome to the Mindscaped podcast. Politics, environment, history, mental health, business, religion, people, and philosophy. Escape to the real world.
All right. Are you ready, Shane? Okay. Welcome to another episode of Mindscaped podcast with Shaheen and myself, Nazir. It's great being back, Shane. How are you feeling?
Man, it's been too long. 1 year?
1 year. It was just about November last year.
It looks like we're going to be doing one every year.
It's so exclusive, you only get to one. So any guests we get on, it means it's amazing, right?
Of course, we have an amazing guest lined up.
Tell us about our guest.
Oh, wow. She's an amazing woman. Heart of gold. Loves to look after the world. Comes from a retail background. Started up in, then thereafter moved into Sanzaf as a caseworker, and then spent a few years there, made a few changes there, then thereafter moved to Islamic Relief. I think spent most of her teenage adult years there, for about 11 years if I'm not mistaken. Ended up being the interim CEO twice.
Wow. Everyone's cheering for that.
And then thereafter headhunted by Penny Appeal UK to set up Penny Appeal South Africa, who is none other than Shahnaaz Paruk.
Welcome, Shahnaaz. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Well, this is our official podcast studio that we've set up. Thank you so much for our sponsors. We'll have to mention that another time.
Nice digs, guys. I like it. It's very nice. Here's to you guys having more than your annual podcast. I hope it sees many more guests in studio.
Yeah, that's the aim in the game. I think we want to show South Africa on the map. I mean, there's not many South African podcasts that I know of that are in this international space. I think that's where we want to be, but also have that local flavor with local issues, breaking down those barriers that we don't want to talk about, right? The issues that everyone feels is a taboo topic. I think it's time that we open that door, and many of the general the usual radio stations aren't able to talk about these issues because of whatever sensitive reasons. But you've got this platform called the internet that, an issue here in South Africa can be discussed by people around the world. And exactly, and issues there facing us can be open, and we can have that kind of discussion. So I'm looking forward to it. But let's talk about today's topic. It's this 5 years that Penny Appeal South Africa has been in existence. Alhamdulillah, in South Africa and in Southern Africa and parts of the world. It's been a great journey for everyone. So Shahnaaz, tell us about the beginning stories, about how it all started, the origin stories.
The 5 amazing years, the originals. Looking back, I'm always constantly in awe when I hear about 5 years, because I can't believe it's been that. It seems like it's an eternity more that we've been existing and doing things. But I think when I think back to those initial stages, literally having a blank canvas and starting from absolutely nothing, not having an office initially, just having some documents that said, hey, you're registered, moving on to trying to get into the market, to trying to get some kind of footprint in the door. Yeah. What I do remember in those very early stages was the number of closed doors that presented themselves, which for me was, it sent me into shock because, coming from experiences where collaboration and working together and being welcomed into a space was very normal, right, to a complete 360 flip, blank canvas, not having an office yet, being an absolutely new entity with the realization that you had to work really, really hard to prove yourself and to win people's trust and get them to understand the vision behind why this operation, had now come to South Africa. So very difficult times, I think, initially. Like I mentioned, a lot of closed doors, a lot of lessons learned, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, sheer hard work, because when you're walking into a startup, there is nobody. So initially, I think those initial people were everything for the organization, right down from administration to program work to fundraising to higher level discussions and meetings, all of that. But again, fun. That's why I think I can't help but notice that it's been 5 years, but so much of experience, so many, memories from those initial times, especially. Yeah. You don't realize how far you've come until you, stop and turn around and you realize, like, wow, we were there and, now we're here.
And I think that's important, right? To always look back and do a post-mortem of even in our own lives, we need to be doing that, right? I mean, that's important to realize the good, the bad, the ugly, and then take that, criticism, take the changes that maybe people suggest us. I mean, that's the question that everyone asked initially. Why another charity in South Africa?
Why not?
Why not? Is that your answer?
Why not?
Initially, I think, that was the answer, why not? Because we think that people are more or less accustomed to the idea of new concepts and that people are very amenable to change until we realize that they're not.
Yeah.
Change is something that people don't like. And so having something new, vibrant, coming in, something that, challenged the societal norms, that challenged the way people were thinking, that challenged the way things or the status quo, I think it definitely ruffled a few feathers.
But what were those things that it was challenging? Like, I know one was a fact that, okay, we got so many charities in South Africa, why another one? And to me, the answer was that let's look at the reality of who sits on those boards. Who are those trustees of those organizations? Yes, they served many years in their communities and they're community activists and they saw needs that we probably didn't see at that time and they were fulfilling that role. But we look at them now after 10, 15, 20-year organizations and then it's sitting with, unfortunately, old men, right? That's the reality. And so there was no space for young people to really run themselves, do what they want to do in the spaces. If you join an organization, then it's about control. You can't do this, you can do this. This is how it was done. Why are you changing the thing? That's it. But then young people are not being seen, they're not being heard. And that was the idea, one of the reasons behind it, right?
I think with Penny Appeal, what made us so different was our board, when we first started, were all under the age of 45, including the staff.
Yeah.
So it was a very fresh mindset, a different approach. And the idea of what we wanted to do was try to make charity more fun and get more people involved at a younger age. Because as you said, Nazid, it's, alhamdulillah, very wise old men that sit on the board, but that hasn't really evolved with time.
Yeah, exactly. So that was definitely one of the reasons. The other was, as you said, you do charity different. And how different is that?
I think very differently. If I just speak for myself personally, if we remove all of the titles and remove the entities and the brand names, etc., it got to a stage where I took a step back and I thought to myself that how many organizations exist? And despite all of them existing, we still have the same problems because we're doing the same things in the same way, expecting different results. And it doesn't work. It hasn't worked in all this time. And so the need to challenge those norms, challenge the way things were being done.
And positively challenge.
Positively, definitely, positively. Literally.
Not pointing fingers, but rather saying, okay, let's do it ourselves.
Yeah, a fresh breath of air, being able to look at the way things are being done and change it, change the way things were done. Because I think for too long, the industry had been asleep. And yes, like you mentioned, we have had phenomenal, amazing individuals who have contributed in the sector, who are still on boards, who still head entities. We have fraternities, if I could call it that, of individuals that work together really well in little pockets and groups. And yet we still grapple with basic core things in terms of impact, in terms of how things are being done, in terms of improving the way things are being done. And I just think that, stepping back and being able to come up with a strategy that addressed all of that had minimal red tape, minimal bureaucracy, just focused on getting the work done, getting the impact out there, serving individuals, coming back, how can we improve it? How do we change it? Do we tear the whole thing down and start again? All of these are options and possibilities. So
it wasn't necessarily restarting, but it was building on what was established already. And that's a great foundation to start off with. Definitely. And saying, now let's speak the language that everyone is speaking, right?
Definitely. And I think more than that, getting people to understand that, just because something's been done in a certain way for so long doesn't mean that's the way it needs to be.
Yeah.
There's different things happening out there. There's a whole world entirely dedicated to this space, to the NPO or NGO industry, to the humanitarian sector. So it's not just one way of doing things. There's such a vast universe out there to be able to look at different ways, but to get good impact and to really, hit the nail on the head in terms of achieving missions. So it was a lot about readdressing some of the challenges, redoing certain things, being able to build on that entire portfolio of humanity and humanitarianism. And I think more than that, being able to get people on board with a different type of mission, to become a lot more vibrant and excited about doing charitable work.
Yeah.
For us, there was a huge component, the people component, getting people to buy into that vision, getting them to become excited about it, as opposed to, okay, yeah, we got to give this out. It's charity. Okay, here we go. And, that's it.
Yeah,
So,
that whole click story.
yeah, click.
Yeah, so Shaheen, you joined after Shahnaaz, and then tell us about that journey. You coming in from your background of dealing with blood diamonds.
So I've been doing charity plus minus, if you include these last 5 years, on and off for about 19 years on the back end, where we helped masjids develop work-off systems and sustainable income projects. And myself and Shahnaaz were doing on our own projects privately, basically between us, while she was with Islamic Relief, and I still had my business. And then when Penny Appeal approached Shahnaaz, the first project we actually did was a water project in Cape Town with the previous CEO of Penny Appeal UK. I think that time Cape Town was in drought.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we did an orphanage in Cape Town. And then I met one of the board members or an advisor to the board of UK, and then the previous Penny Appeal CEO.
Yeah.
And they basically took me out and indirectly interviewed me. And then Shahnaaz came and said, well, how would you like to join Penny Appeal? At first I was a bit hesitant because I was never the front-facing guy. I was always on the back end.
You still want to be in the background all the time, right?
Still do. Love it. But for me, I think the convincing part was that I get to do something that I really love on a bigger scale and a wider scale, and we can impact and help much more people. Yes, it was a massive transition coming from my previous life and my previous businesses. But it's something that I really enjoy. And I think for me personally, when people found out that I was at Penny Appeal, my uncle actually phoned me up and congratulated me and told me my entire life I've been spinning like a top. And this is where God wanted you to be. So I come full circle in life. I saw everything because alhamdulillah, I was very blessed in traveling to a lot of parts of Africa. So I've seen a lot of poverty firsthand. So coming to Penny Appeal, it was, I think, the best decision I made in my life. And we have an amazing team.
Yeah. As much as decisions we make in our life, Allah guides us to that perfect space and time, no matter what it is.
100%. I mean, you plan, I plan, but Allah is the best of planners.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have ever expected that? Chair of the board, Nazir Jamal, whose father taught me. Shahnaaz were doing work 6 years ago. There was no, 6-7 years ago, and there was no mention of Penny Appeal. I mean, actually, Shahnaaz, let me tell you something about Shahnaaz.
Yeah, spill it all. We want to know.
When I first met her, the most patriotic Islamic Relief person I ever met.
Oh,
where
wow.
she would say to me,
she was all blue.
where she would say to me, watch this, I bleed blue.
Oh, is it?
No, there's blue that runs through
To
the
my vein.
Okay.
And now, alhamdulillah, it's orange.
That blue was about charity. It's about no matter which organization you serve the time, you help those who are in need at that specific moment in time. And now it's, sometimes it's about growth, it's about change.
Yeah.
It's different. I mean, my journey was similar to you guys. I've been in charity sector for so long as a volunteer. then served on a few boards of charity organizations, and then problems, issues, the whole concern and the politics that gets at every single Muslim organization. Not one Muslim organization, or even general organizations, companies, all have this politics that is part of this game. It's unfortunately there. So I faced all the music, learned very bitter lessons. I'm normally a very naive person when it comes to people. I'm just like, no, my dad told me this. See the good in others always. He never saw, and we were like, but look at this guy. He's like doing this and doing. Yeah. So I was like that, and then I learned not everyone is the hero that you want them to be, So I learned the better lessons, and I really was praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, find me something that I can do again, because I didn't do charity for like a year and a half, wasn't involved in anything because of the bitterness that I was facing. And then Allah gave me some beautiful organization called Pen APO South Africa, and He gave me a wonderful team like you guys to be part of it. And so, what more can I ask for? When they say dua's answers, this was truly a dua's answered.
You should have made dua for $1 billion.
This is like $1 billion, bro. Having your friendship in come on. Alhamdulillah. Yeah. So then just being able to be part of this, I literally was like, you guys just handle it and went through as operational team. It was just me sitting there saying, okay, let's try this, let's try that. But I mean, that's the charity. Like, so let's talk a little bit about some of those milestones that you experienced. I mean, it's 5 years. People want to know what's happening in the next 5 years. But let's just go back for those who were listening or watching for the first time, hearing about Pen APO South Africa. They may have heard the name, never actually, done anything or donated or been part of something. Just share some of those recaps that you can think of. I know it's 5 years. It's just like taking, 365 times 5? Who's a mathematician here?
Sure, that's a lot.
That's a lot of days. A lot of days, yeah.
A lot of days.
Tell us, Shahnaaz.
Some of the key highlights, I think, have genuinely been project focused. For me, that's the highlight. That's really what I thrive on. Working with communities, working with individuals, other entities, creating change. So I think one of the very first big projects that we were lucky enough to work on was the Tutu Desk campaign. And that was with the Desmond Tutu Foundation, which looked at providing a mobile desk, which was called a Tutu Desk, to children in underserved schools in the Limpopo province. At that stage, they were literally just the two. I don't even think Shaheen was on full-time then. I think it was part-time, like just helping out. And so, we signed up and we found out about it, and then we were like, oh, we need to be there. And so in a matter of no time, landing in Johannesburg, hiring a vehicle, driving to a little town called Groblersdal, never even heard of it in my life before. From there, getting picked up every morning, driving out at least 2 hours into really, really rural Limpopo.
So, sorry, just on that. So we would drive down Groblersdal, there's only one lane.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you turn right into the bush. There's no signs. There's nothing.
Short right.
Yeah, short right. There's no road. There's bush.
Oh my gosh.
And you drive maybe another hour. There's nothing. And all of a sudden, you come to this whole new world.
Yeah, so these little pockets of totally rural. And, these schools, which were great because you think, okay, there are schools here, until you see the infrastructure. Not only of the schools, the infrastructure around water, around food, around housing. Totally disabled infrastructure, if I could call it that. Like nothing that was concrete enough for it to be a fully functional infrastructure. And so our mandate was providing the school desk and accompanying, on the distribution side of things. And amazing, reception from people who had almost nothing, from children who were going to use this desk to do their homework on, when they went home, as well as use it to eat on if needed, because some homes just didn't have that.
And they were durable to carry from school.
Durable, light enough to carry. I
Cross the rivers.
Less than half a kilo.
Less than half a kilo in weight, half a kg in weight. And so, they could move it around, they could use it.
Just a desk, right? A school desk. I'm just thinking
just a school desk. That's what I thought, just a school desk. But I think the phenomenal response that was received and what we saw there, I think it just spurred us on to, understand that there's so much more that needs to be done. So one of our very first projects, I think that one really, hit home. If we move on from there were so many others in
So that's education, right, that you focus on. And that's still continuing education, right?
Education still continues. It's something we've still prioritized. I think, if anything, Penny and Peel South Africa has made a marked stamp, if I could call it, on that education sector within South Africa itself. So Limpopo being one. If we go on to fast forward at least a year later, where, through the greater Penny and Peel family, being Penny and Peel UK, as well as an initiative actually with the Peace Train Foundation, the Yusuf Islam Foundation, that was supporting a high school in Cape Town, which was a no fees paying school, to put up some 15 to 16 mobile classroom units.
Sure, right.
So literally pitched out to look like a train of sorts, as a peace train type of thing, but under the Penny and Peel banner. And I think the provision of those resources, it was the classrooms that were provided. So being able to have children that could go to a school in a gang-ridden area, children who came from impoverished backgrounds, who didn't have to worry about the stress of school fees, could now attend school, a good quality school, access that education. The school was also provided with a grant for resources, as well as teacher salaries and the like.
So the entire shebang.
Full on, the whole 9 yards, quite literally. Yeah. And I think that was a very significant project because it was the largest of its type in terms of
and that's a high school, right?
It was a high school.
High school,
from grade 8 or 10 to 12.
Yeah, grade 8 to 12. And I think, when we visited, each time we'd visit the school, we'd make it a point every time we were in the region.
So what year was that?
That was over a 2-year period.
So from what year was it?
2018. Late 2018.
End of 2018.
Yeah, late 2018 following
So the matriculants that have matriculated from then are probably now finishing their degrees, going into the first
There've been some amazing success stories from there.
There's a few kids that have become teachers.
Oh, wow.
That are serving in that school at the moment.
Sure.
So it was really, really amazing, to see the impact it was making. Because when you visited and when we engaged with the children, you'd realize that they were the actual ones benefiting from it and how they valued education. Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but when I was in school, there were some days I was like, oh, no, man. No, what are we doing here, man? Why are we here? What maths? How can you have maths so early in the morning?
So did you bunk school?
Yeah, tell us.
Did you go to the workshop on the wheel?
We'll leave that for another podcast, all of those shenanigans. But to see children actually, back to the story, to see children actually so excited and thankful and grateful for having a school and being able to access an education. Honestly, there were times when I would hear these stories and I actually think, here are people or here are children who are hungry for knowledge. And you realize why, because they want to rewrite their futures.
Yeah. And if they were staying at home that day, there would have been other things happening. They've been sold off, they could be sold drugs, it could be so much prostitution.
That's it.
So many worse things could have happened if they're home. They'd rather be, and yet we in this privileged life saying, I don't want to go to school.
Exactly. There were times where I felt absolutely ashamed. And then you realize they really just want the best shot at a better tomorrow for themselves. Yeah. It means that much to them.
You're talking about how privileged we are. A few years ago in that school, one of the students who was writing maths, grade 12 maths, on the morning of her paper witnessed her brother being shot dead in front of her.
Gang violence.
Gang violence.
Yeah.
But yet she still went to school, wrote the maths paper, and got a distinction.
The worst thing that happened to me in matric was my mom gave me the wrong lunch. But that's the reality, right? That's what we live.
Yeah.
That's
you're right.
true.
That's what we live. And then we're still not grateful. And you just tell me someone who's lost their brother and still write a paper.
And witnessed the murder. She was a witness.
And this is not in a war-torn country.
This is not in a war-torn country.
It's around the
it's not
corner
in a
from
movie. It's not in a series. It's literally in one of our very iconic cities.
So, you spoke about a project like education, right? But you focused in on so many other things that I can see are relating to that. You mentioned about orphans at home. You mentioned about so many other things like food that's related to it, sustainable gardens, just education itself having so many arms that are connected to it. But many people don't understand when it comes to a larger charity that's working with so many projects in so many areas across the world, the background noise that is created just to get this hand, of person receiving it. It's not like, hey, boss, bring me the biryani here and give it to this community. Someone called me, they need help. It's not like that, right? There's entire protocols and procedures so that you ensure that 1 rand or that 100 rand or 10,000 rand is received to the right recipient at the right time at the most efficient way. Now, just explain that entire background noise that's created by everyone in the office.
So, firstly, just that whole biryani thing, we refer to it as biryani charity. Yeah,
Right.
not something we tend to get involved in.
That's going to be a slogan, biryani charity.
Biryani charity. We actually use that term a lot.
Is it?
When we
in the
see
industry?
when we see certain things happening,
Right.
Immediately we look at it and we're like, oh man, it's biryani charity.
Yeah.
Biryani charity.
But explain that. What does it mean? Like, what?
I think we must acknowledge being in South Africa, and if we talk about certain backgrounds, so if you talk about the Indian culture, and just the culture of giving, it's cultures influence charitable giving in a huge way.
Yeah.
The way the Jewish, the way the Hindu, the way even Greeks for that matter, a whole other nationality does charity. It differs, and that's influenced by people and their backgrounds, people and their cultures. If we look specifically at Muslim, because Muslims are known to be one of the largest charitable givers because of our obligation to discharge our zakat, right? Our alms for charity. So it becomes, obviously there's a lot of wealth that needs to be given out, that needs to be distributed, regardless of how much for a fact that certain individuals are liable to pay, and so that money has to be discharged. If we look back historically, and this is where our blessed elders and fathers, come into play, at a certain point, to them, in their wisdom, the best form of assisting individuals who were in need or vulnerable would have been to feed them. Right? That's all it was focused around, feeding, be it food hampers, be it hot meals.
And there's a sunnah behind that, right?
There is. All motivated, again, by good intentions. I don't think any of these things were done with bad intentions in mind. But what's happened since is that times have changed. People have changed. The beneficiary has changed. The giver or the donor has changed. And so distributing pots of biryani or basically putting a Band-Aid over an issue doesn't work anymore, because as much as we say the world has become a lot more complex, so have the issues around poverty become a lot more complex.
And the nuances of each person's culture, right? Of what they eat and what they consume. And that brings the topic of what you do in Cape Town, right? When you told me that you won't give pap and maize to Cape Townians because they don't eat 100%. That, they eat rice.
So back to your earlier question, using what Shahnaaz said, the biryani charity, what we do is the back end now. So if someone, let's say, there's an area that calls for assistance for hot meals. What we will go do then is send a team into the area to do a needs assessment, engage community leaders, religious leaders as well, and get an assessment on overall idea of what's going on in the area.
Yeah, so that local knowledge, right, tapping into that local knowledge.
Yeah, 100%. Imperative. And it's very important to also engage those on the ground, so we can get a better idea of the need. In some areas, I think where we would like to say Penyapul is very different. In some of the areas, what we've done is, if we're dealing more with Indian beneficiaries, then we'll do a rice dish. If we're dealing more with African beneficiaries, we'll do more pap and chicken. So we do the assessment, because there's no use in giving people food if they're not accustomed to it.
Exactly, yeah.
You're going to have more wastage. There's a possibility you're going to have diarrhea. There's a possibility you're going to get sick. There's a whole lot of these possibilities, which
doesn't suit their stomach, their taste, and you want to give, and if you're definitely giving, you must give the best, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And also
of what you would consume, if not even with your culture, then
100%. Right? And a lot of us we try to live by, but it's hadith: love for your brother what you love for yourself.
Exactly.
If you don't eat certain things, don't give it. Yeah. At least with all of us, we all eat pap, chicken, rice, everything.
Yeah.
So we give of what we love, or what we will give our own families.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So I mean, we spoke about that background, right? So it's how do you choose this community? How does that happen? How do you know that you're going to give this community at this time, and the funds have come in, maybe, right? So we'll talk about fundraising later, but funds have come in now because you fundraise for Feed Our World, for example, or Orphan Kind. Now what happens? How does this funds get distributed and allocated?
In order to understand and successfully implement a program or a project, it can't be done in isolation or in a silo. So firstly, on the organizational side, it takes a lot of networking and knowing your people, knowing the communities,
Right.
having networks into communities and being able to identify which community would benefit from something more than another would, which is very normal. It's not a
It's a
blanket
difficult
rule.
decision.
Yeah, it's not a blanket rule for everybody.
Right.
It's being able to match what's needed and being able to give the best that you can to assist those communities. So that means engaging community leaders,
Right.
engaging people in the community, asking the community,
Yeah.
what is it that's required? What are some of your issues? Example, the challenges that present in Cape Town or in the Western Cape are very, very different from the challenges that present in vulnerable communities here in KwaZulu-Natal. It's very different landscapes, different challenges that are being faced. But when you have a need to implement a project, I think that the most important thing, like I mentioned, is being able to engage and find out if the need is welcomed.
Wow.
That's the key. You don't just walk in.
That's powerful, man.
You don't
Yeah.
walk in somewhere and be like, hey, what's happening, guys? Here you go. It's not an Oprah show.
It's like, oh, I got these blankets.
You get a
come
shoe.
take
Yeah,
it.
you get a
take it.
blanket. You get a
Be
blanket.
appreciative of it. What's wrong with you?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yet you do find some people that do that.
Yeah.
That's a sad reality.
Right.
They have
And that's everywhere in the world.
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it's not just South
Because they got to distribute fast. Check, we're on the ground here. We're now here. Check, get the thing done. We don't care who. You just walk by. No problem. You get one too.
100%.
That's it. So you've got to obviously engage and make sure that you are welcomed to be able to enter the community. Having a respectful dialogue with the community or with community members is so essential in those early, initial stages. And it goes a long way in establishing and building relationships. That's how we still have really great relationships with different communities, different field partners on the ground 5 years in. I don't think there's anybody we've really distanced too much from because the respect and the dignity has always been there. The second thing to do is be able to match properly. So it's a lot about understanding what the need of the community is, being able to craft a program or a project either on a short-term basis or a medium to long-term basis. And in those instances, it needs to be something that's going to benefit the community, something that's tangible.
Right.
And the reality is, you're not always going to have something that is long-term and sustainable. Sometimes the need calls for short-term for a specified time frame. You need to be able to match what you're doing to the community, make sure it's something that's relevant, make sure it's something that's welcomed, tangible, all of those type of things.
And so that's the programs team that would be working on
Yeah.
that. They've had that done a needs assessment,
Visit with the community,
prepare a
understand what's
proposal
happening.
to you as a CEO
Yeah.
and the COO.
So for every finding that happens, it has to be tabled or tabulated for any project that's going to go ahead. There needs to be a plan, either a concept note at bare minimum, if it's a once-off. If it's an ongoing project, there's an entire project concept and proposal that goes ahead with it,
Yeah.
with a budget, which is, you remember all those maths lessons I hated in school? Yeah, so each budget has like a line item,
Yeah.
and it's very...
And then you
distinct.
allocate those funds.
Then the funds are allocated, signed off on, funds are then allocated, and that's just half of it.
Yeah.
Then the actual work gets done. So if you look at the program cycle,
Yeah.
you've got the initial assessments of the why.
Yeah.
Okay? And then you've got the next thing in the cycle, which is the what. What are you providing? What's going to happen? And you've got the how, which is how are we going to get this to these individuals or to the community? What's it going to entail? And then it's a matter of when, when's it going to happen?
Yeah.
Getting it expedited. And then comes, after the actual implementation, comes the monitoring and evaluation.
Oh, wow.
Was this given out? Did we have to adjust it?
ID numbers, did you receive all the list of
there's a
names?
whole back end in terms of being able to be accountable.
Yeah.
So for every food pack distributed, it's accompanied with a register with somebody signing off to say, yes, we received this. For every emergency response we do, sometimes we're lucky enough to be able to get names. If not, there's evidence of people receiving items. There's a letter from a ward councillor or something to be able to say that this is where it went to. So the accountability side is really important in being
that's
able
what
to
I
show.
want to ask. You said you're trying to do it without red tape, right? But I'm looking at this, seems like so much of red tape, but there's a reason behind this, right?
100%.
There's accountability and transparency, and this is what really stands out in every organization. People want to know, is it received? How is it received? How are you allocating it? This is a perfect explanation of one project that has so much of requirements from legal perspective, South African law. Then you've got ethical reasons. Then you've got Islamic reasons, right? Because if it's zakah money, obviously that's separate account, bank account, separate dealing, separate. So, I mean, people need to understand that so much of effort is made to get it to that recipient. And so just not a random shotgun, everyone gets it.
A lot of people don't understand the back end of what goes on when you're doing a hamper distribution or a breakfast club or a water project. The logistical side can be a nightmare at times, because it's not just about picking up the phone and, hey, can I have a bag of rice? It's for us to get the best possible price, for us to get the best possible product. Then after we got to logistically transport the product. Then we got to verify and vet the beneficiaries. Then we got to get a location which is secure for the staff and the beneficiaries. There's a whole back end to this.
There's an entire back end. So, that goes with multiple stakeholders.
And there's that time frame also.
So you're literally working with the beneficiary or the rights holder. You're working with your supplier, who's another stakeholder. You've got your team on the ground. Sometimes you've got volunteers. It's a whole host of things that go into play for the actual implementation to happen. That's a whole methodology on its own. Then you've got, after the implementation takes place, the reconciliation of it. How much was used, how much is left over.
Archiving of it also.
And then the record keeping. As much as we said no bureaucracy, the keeping of records and having all of this is really essential in amplifying the need for us, or amplifying our accountability and transparency, to say that, there's no bureaucracy around how quick we're able to give a decision on if we're able to assist or not. Nothing gets, lost in the woodwork and waiting and speaking to 10 people. It's a defined, the process is clear and doesn't have that many steps in terms of defining or how do we reach an arrangement to assist something. We want it to be seamless, and it needs to be something that is sharp in being able to say, okay, right, when it comes to execution, we managed to do it in 5 steps. And that's what it entails. This is how it's going to happen, and that's it.
And then your auditors are knocking on your door.
Then it's time. You just blink and it's time for audit again. And every audit we've had, really, I'm so thankful that it's been smooth sailing. Yes, they'll ask for stuff. I think initially for people to understand that we're a hybrid. I kind of forgot to say that, didn't I? That we're a hybrid model. It was one of the first of its kind to be able to put forward the concept of hybrid. And I guess it ties in a lot with South Africa, with the South African agenda.
Context,
and how we are. Hybrid meaning, as much as we put a lot of weight behind fundraising and putting our brand out there and pushing, we're also implementing on the ground all the time. We're literally, we have boots on the ground in most of the project locations we're working in. Most of the projects we do, we facilitate it directly. So that being a hybrid office means you're actually running 2 offices with 2 separate blueprints, but trying to accomplish, that common mission of being able to serve.
So, I mean, that leads to so we understand our programs and the dynamics that goes behind the difficulties and the decisions that are made by the executive to ensure that when the trustees come knocking, the auditors come knocking, and the community donors asking, we have that, we're able to provide whatever they require in a speedy format, an easy format and a speedy time frame, so that a transparency is always there and it's accountable at every step, for even every minute and every rand. I know I've traveled with you guys across, and then Shahnaaz like, can I get the receipts? And Shaheen, every time after we need to purchase something, then he's taking a picture. I'm like, he's taking a picture of the receipt, so that in case I lose the receipt, I know I've got a copy of it, right? 100%. Electronic copy. I've never seen to that level of transparency, and that truly is remarkable, and that is what is required, right? That's the Sunnah of the Prophet. That's what Islam requires us to be accountable for every minute, every second that we spend. That's money that's not ours. It's not yours. It's someone is donating it in the name of Allah. It's donating it in for somebody else to receive it. So you want to try and maximize that amount. So I'm going to talk about fundraising, right? I mean, there's a whole question about it, about how funds are received and how much is spent in marketing and that whole question, right? But I mean, there's an important aspect to it. I mean, if you're running a small organization that's a soup kitchen, your marketing is not going to be much, right? You're only working in your community and you're asking bigger organizations to provide that. Mm-hmm. But then as a larger charity where you are in a bigger space where you're working with corporate organizations and you want to get the maximum amount of money into the charity so that you can show the difference that you're doing in the community and you can do the work that you do, there's that question about how do you fundraise and what is Penny Appeal's South Africa's fundraising strategy in a nutshell?
Oh, I like it. So our strategy has always been, and this is something that actually shaped the way, now that I think of it, it shaped the way our 5 years has panned out. It's always been about being able to show the work that we're doing. Let the work speak for itself.
Exactly.
And I think everybody on the team, from our directors and trustees right on the top, right to our general assistants at the bottom, even our volunteers know that's what we pride ourselves on.
So if you want to know who we are, look at what we do.
Look at our work.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
You don't need to see, understand how much of fundraising is coming in. It's about work that we can do with what we receive. Yeah,
that's exactly it. Because the ask that we do is always driven by a project, by a need, right? That's why we're here. That's why we exist, to be able to be the facilitators and be able to assist those in need. But that fundraising strategy has always prioritized, before even showcasing the work, it's prioritized the dignity of the people we serve firstly. So we ensure that it's done in a tasteful way. Again, coming back to the biryani charity, it's not just about giving out, things that are irrelevant. It's also about the way sometimes some beneficiaries or rights holders or impoverished people are portrayed, right? You see some really, really tragic cases of poverty porn, if I could call it that, where people are exploited. Simply just to get the pound or the dollar or whatever else it is in. We make sure that it's done keeping in mind the dignity of the rights holder. We ensure that the fundraising is specific so people are clear in terms of what we're appealing for. And more than that, we ensure that they're able to see and measure us in terms of what we're doing, our activity on the ground. How active are we? What are we doing? How relevant are we in terms of what we're doing? And I think, from where I'm sitting, we tick all of those boxes, and it's something that we always align ourselves to in terms of accountability and how we are expending funds to be able to assist.
Yeah, I mean, Shane, your thoughts on fundraising and the effort that goes behind it?
Wow. I think when we first started, it was such an uphill battle because it's a new charity. Yeah. And again, the question was why?
Who are you and why?
Yeah, who are you? I mean, alhamdulillah, a lot of people know myself and Shahnaaz personally, so they know our character and they know what we used to do in the past. So we had this few individuals that actually believed in what we were trying to do and believed in the vision. And they gave us some funds and we started off the project. I mean, initially when Penny Appeal started, the talk was about how we're going to get the general public to know Penny Appeal. And there was an option of a fundraising dinner. But have a fundraising dinner and show what?
Yeah.
And again, give biryani.
Just give us your money. We'll tell you what we're going to do with it later.
Enjoy the biryani.
You guys are knocking biryani, man. I love biryani, man.
I love biryani with saffron. So I think the decision was made with the board and Shahnaaz that let the work speak for itself. Let us go and upset the apple cart and help as many people as we can, and then take the work or invite people on this journey with us, come and see it. Because what a lot of people don't realize, and what Penny Appeal does a lot, we welcome our donors, volunteers, the general public to come and join us, because that journey is life-changing. It's extremely spiritual.
No doubt.
It's life-changing. You get to see tears, joy, cry, laughter all in one.
Yeah.
And then you come back and you start questioning your existence.
I mean, you go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that stuck out on me, sorry, just on this slight diversion.
Never apologize.
When we had our first Eat Dream event at Hartley Road, and myself and Shahnaaz were discussing in Ramadan, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were discussing what we're going to give the donors and the volunteers for iftar. And we had about 100 or 150 kids from orphanages, if I'm not mistaken, that we invited. And the debate was, what are we going to give them to eat? We can't give them halim.
Yeah.
So what we decided to do was buy barrels of KFC.
Nice.
And what was amazing about that was you had little kids coming up to us and saying, Uncle, can I have another one? I mean, watching these kids put the chicken into their pocket. Until we found out that 95% of these kids never had KFC before in their life.
Sure.
Something that you and I take for granted. And we talk about
It's
rubbish,
just KFC.
unhealthy, blah, blah, blah. But these kids never ever had it.
Yeah.
Which was an eye-opener for a lot of us that found that, that found out about this information. And it was really, for me, sad that I know of people, friends and family, that we waste so much of food and we take all of this for granted, whereas something like Streetwise 2, which is what, $20, $30, these kids never ever had.
Jeez.
Their families could never afford it.
Yeah, I think, and that in itself, just that story, though, that's like one of many that spurs us on. Because, you know, what a lot of people don't say to you, or what you won't hear a lot of people in the sector, in the industry talk about is fundraising on a community side it's really hard, man. You know, especially for us coming in, again, new, young.
Yeah.
People are nervous. What's going on? Who are these people? How can I trust them? You know, what are they actually doing? In year one, our project portfolio wasn't as diverse and dynamic. You know, we were still getting into it. We were still trying to build that track record. It was challenging. You know, I have to tell you, it was really, really challenging. There were moments that were really good. You know, and when I think back to the first donors that we ever had, I was in awe because I was like, wow. They trust us. You know, they're giving us this money, which means they trust us. We're doing something right. And off you go and, you know, you try harder. And then there were also those instances where we had literal doors closed on our faces.
Yeah.
I've
seen those.
Some horror stories. We had people, you know, thinking and saying all types of things.
Yeah.
You had other entities, and I'll speak openly about it, who...
That's what the podcast about, right?
who closed their doors on us, did not want to work with us, refused to engage with us. And that's when we realized, right, we've got to just give it all we've got because we're on our own. And I think that was the best thing that could have happened.
Yeah.
Because it taught us resilience. It taught us how to be mindful with our resources.
Yeah.
It taught us how to, you know, engage with other platforms and other type of entities and other groups, which brought us so much more as opposed to the, you know, the usuals that we were used to. I'm laughing because, you know, Shaheen always used to say in those initial days when we'd have those strat meetings that, why are we only focusing in one pond? There's so many other pools. There's an ocean out there. And, you know, for me, I was like, yeah, but, you know, I want to go. And it's like, no. And I think now that we've attuned and accustomed our mindsets to that, it makes you realize how much more you can actually accomplish. Again, thinking out the box, out of the pond.
Disrupting.
Becoming, that's just it, becoming disruptors. And it's a title that we really try and live up to.
Yeah.
Again, for great reasons, for being able to help people. But fundraising always comes with its challenges. I think there have been many waves that we've ridden. It's been good times, it's been some bad times, it's been great and amazing, exciting events.
Especially those donors who have been giving us monthly. I mean, you telling me those are incredible donors. And
monthly. Some of our first donors are still donating. You know,
the
sometimes
100 and 200 rands from the aunties in Cape Town you were telling me about still come out every month. And then you get even the guys who are giving bigger, you know, the 50,000 the corporates are giving us. And it's incredible.
At this moment, 5 years on, we have a donor that donates between 50 to 80 rand every week who we don't know.
Every week?
Every week. For the last 5 years.
You don't know?
We don't know. It comes in as we don't know.
We have no idea.
But this has been ongoing since initial inception.
Sure.
One of our very...
Nice to do the maths and see how much it actually comes to. Yeah.
One of our very first donors still today funds us with some of our staff on a monthly basis. If I think about fundraising quickly, two other things. There's a donor also currently who donates 5 rand every week or every second day.
Oh, wow.
It's 5 rand. And I see it coming in all the time when we're reconciling bank accounts.
Small change makes a big difference.
That's just it. But you know what inspires me? I smile when I see that because they're listening. When we're saying, give what you can with what you have, whenever you can. They listen, they hear. When we say to them, as little as 5 Rand a day can change, it means that, people are actually taking that interest. And, that spurs
and testing us.
Probably. But I think the fact that they feel included and being able to do it and give what they can with what they have. And the other thing about fundraising, what really, warms my heart sometimes is on our website, under certain appeals, you're able to put in a special request, which is for your intention, for what you're giving for. The same goes for, Qurbani. At Qurbani, one of our peak campaigns, you can state your intention or your niyyah.
Right.
And sometimes I read them, when they pop up from time to time. If I'm looking at it before I sign off on recons, I look at it and, reading some of them, some people donate their sadaqah for a good marriage, for a good spouse. Others do it because, for their father or their mother or a parent that's deceased, their business. And I read all this and I think, this is it, man. This is people entrusting you and telling you. The
sincerity behind it,
They are so sincere. And what that does automatically, it just reignites that passion to, again, hold ourselves accountable. Because this is why. As much as we're holding ourselves accountable to serve the needy, we're holding ourselves accountable to those individuals who basically are entrusting you to do good.
What you've given,
to do good. And we're so thankful. And I get humbled when I see that because I think, wow, they trust us. They're counting on us to deliver. And it really goes a long way in just reframing how we're doing things.
Carry on.
Sorry, with fundraising, when we first started, a very close friend of mine, Sheikh, gave me some advice and he said, this is the most difficult, tested position Allah has put you in. And he was so right, because you meet people who either love you or treat you like a piece of crap. I mean, we have literally, I experienced it once where a person came and literally threw his money in my face, like, you're doing me a favor. I can hear Shahnaaz's voice in the back of my head, you represent a brand. And you know what, I just looked at him and I remembered Shahnaaz's voice and I remembered...
and you waited there for like 2 hours?
Yeah, actually very long, and I flew to another city. And he just threw it in my face. And, I realized that that's your test, and the way I respond to you is my test. And I always say this to our staff and our team members, that whatever comes from whichever donor only comes by the will of Allah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That Allah, at the end of the day, He's the provider.
No matter what effort you can do.
No matter what.
That's it.
I mean, who would have ever thought, Penny Appeal, Shahnaaz can correct me here, we have about 25% non-Muslim donors.
Sure.
So you have non-Muslims that don't even believe in the concept of Tawheed. That are currently,
they're drawn to something.
They're drawn to something. And that's by Allah. We've done the work, but it's only by Allah. And we always say, have this firm belief. And Shahnaaz is, like a broken CD
record.
Oh, is it?
Renew your intentions.
Renew your intention.
Yes.
And that's one thing you have to do. Get up every morning and really renew your intentions.
Because beyond all the flashy lights and the fancy marketing and
100%.
And all of that,
blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, and there's sincerity that has to be placed behind that,
I'm sure you guys can remember this. In one Ramadan, we had this event, and there were people who tried to close their doors on us.
Yeah.
And we had this meeting and said, at the end of the day, it is Allah provides. We see Him in front, we see Him on top, we see Him behind, we see Him on the side.
Exactly.
That is it. And what happened that year? What we expected and what we got was oil and water.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Amazing.
Only by having that firm belief in Allah Almighty.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah. And you speak about this word called barakah. It's such an increased. I was saying this last night on the live that the linguists around the world have been researching the word barakah from the Islamic perspective, and then they realized the value of this barakah word and what we understand as barakah. That when we say small change, big difference, meaning that sincerity that you give that 10 Rand, that 100 Rand worth, has the value of it as if it's 10 times that amount. That's the barakah that you can get from that 100 Rand. So don't have a belief that it's a small amount. That's not the true belief.
100%.
The belief is that it has value that of whatever it is in from your heart. And inshallah will bless that.
Just by you saying it there, I just remembered something. In COVID time, we gave out food hampers not far from here. And we went door to door. And it's zakat hampers. And I remember going to this lady's house, and I gave her the hamper. And as I'm walking away, she calls me back. And she takes out 20 rand, and she says, please put this to the next hamper.
So,
and my God, for me it was...
she's receiving a hamper.
You're receiving zakat. You're zakatable.
Yeah.
Yet you're giving me your last 20 rand and telling me give it to the next person because that person needs
May
it.
need more. Sure.
SubhanAllah.
That's
Look
incredible.
at that.
That's incredible.
And the barakah that Allah has given her in her heart is unbelievable.
Allah bless her for that.
Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen.
So the other aspect to talk about is the issue of ethics behind charities, right? There's so much about it. Firstly, from the point of receiving and distributing zakah, so someone's giving their responsibility, they're handing it over to you, maintaining it, monitoring it, ensuring that it's distributed as fast as possible, as efficient as possible. Then the thing of my story where I come in with the photography, right, as a videographer and photographer, honing in my skills and seeing the importance of really protecting our recipients when it comes to their aura, when it comes to their give me the word.
When it comes to their dignity.
Dignity.
Yeah.
So when it comes to protecting their dignity, that is of vital importance. So when we travel to the parts of Syria and when we come back here in South Africa, sticking a camera in someone's faces as they're receiving it, trying to get the perfect shot. I mean, these things are part of the game, right? But you don't want to do it at the expense of someone's dignity, at someone feeling very awkward in the position. And I've done presentations to other charities, workshops with charities based on just on ethics of photography. So as much as I can, when I hold the camera, I really enjoy being with Shaheen on site when he's there, encouraging people, making them laugh, making them smile, asking them how was your day, responding to them, so they already feel comfortable with me being around. But there's a reason, there's a value behind taking that picture and having that equipment, because you want to get the best story out, to tell the real life story that someone is facing, seeing that smile as they receive that hamper. Many people can't join us on the we asked them to come, but they're working and so on. So how do you really firstly show that yes, we did give 1,000 hampers to this community. It's not like we were just thumb sucking it somewhere. Number two is about seeing that real feeling that someone is receiving it, and then hearing, when I do the video, hearing them say like, you know what, this is so grateful, and hearing the stories that they tell me. Just yesterday, we were Monday it was. We were in an area called Wentworth and Oosterville, and hearing those elderly ladies and children from the school there and saying that the hope that we've put into their hearts from upgrading their center, from providing them a soup kitchen that they can come for meals, and then sharing a meal with them, seeing them eat. I mean, those are the real stories. So that's why we do the camera. That's why we're sitting there taking a picture. But we do it at the utmost ethics that we can uphold. But you want to talk about something else that was all related to it, right? I mean, there's so many points, right? There's the reality of people using imagery for the purpose of what they call poverty porn.
Yeah. So poverty porn is obviously when, and this is why it's so important to understand your sector, and it's so important to be able to apply yourself correctly to the situation at hand. There are certain instances where a disaster takes place or people are homeless. And so running into a place without anybody knowing who you are, without any explanation, and pointing a camera into a child's face, capturing a woman who may not be decently dressed, shoving a camera into their face, just walking to their home with here's a camera, I'm recording this, asking questions. Not acceptable. It's not acceptable to portray individuals or rights holders or people who are in need in a vulnerable situation to the public. It's one thing knowing that they are possibly in circumstances that are really, deserving and where they're really needy. But it's another thing when you take that image with the sole intention of using it to exploit the person's image. I get, though, that there are some instances. Example, every time I see a picture of a child in Somalia who's affected by the famine, and I think, what is wrong with these people, man? Why are they showing us these pictures of this child like half starving? And then I realize, look, that's all that's there, okay? There's no other way to depict a famine. That's all that's there. You're not going to get a smiling child who's in the throes of hunger. And so I totally get that. But again, it's about how you frame things. And one thing that I forgot to touch on is in our sector, we actually have guidelines. There are humanitarian principles There are humanitarian rulings that are in place for different things. Even the way you attend to a disaster, there's principles that are in place. One of the biggest principles of in the humanitarian sector is do no harm.
Right.
Do no harm. You cannot go into an area and create harm, whether you're putting a camera in somebody's face.
Political unrest.
Whether you're removing a child from one place to the other, whether your staff are setting up base camp. As we know, some bigger entities, when emergencies happen, they set up base camp, and then all of the drama starts in terms of, people being taken advantage of and all
Abuse,
of that. So do no harm. That's the first thing. The second thing, the way we manage it is we have child protection policies in place specifically, and this also extends to the adults. Basically, the crux of it is we will never do something or take a picture or do a video without the consent of the person,
and
of
it's not
the adult.
forced consent.
It is never forced consent.
We're not getting a pamper if you don't give us a picture.
It is never forced consent. And again, a big part of it is, you remember much earlier I said, know your people, know your community. So when my team goes into a place, they know. There's no way you're walking into a community, just standing there and be like, right, next, take your food. No. You need to, again, like I said in the beginning, engage your community. Engage the people. Welcome them. Talk to them about who you are. Talk to them about why you're there. What will they be receiving for the day? We even have something called a complaints mechanism. If people are unhappy with the way they've been treated at a distribution, if they're unhappy with any component, maybe... there's been at least, I think, 3 that come to mind, 3 complaints that came to mind specifically. 2 of which was because the individuals felt that they weren't selected, because we have selection criteria for who's assisted. And one was to do with, I think, the food pack itself, which was the supply issue. And these things happen, and we address them, and we learn, and we move on. But there's a complaints mechanism. So they tell them, if you're not happy, this is what you need to do. They always point out the person with the camera. This is so-and-so. They're going to be taking some pictures of you. If you're not happy, if you're not happy, you need to tell us. Otherwise, please feel free to wave. In most cases, people are fine. They're okay with it. But also, you pick up, you see when people are not comfortable with something. And so we stay away. The way in which imaging that we do is 2 different things. There's some that we use for feedback purposes for our donors specifically. And so it does not make social media pages. It's not used for publication. Then there's the images that are used for publication. And those images, we always make sure that it's portraying the person in a positive light.
Right.
It's never with the person in a negative light. It's never to make them feel inadequate, or it never lacks dignity. It's very dignified. So no such thing as people not having adequate clothes on, no such thing as much as possible, no direct shots portraying them in a vulnerable situation. We just make sure we do the best we can to try and tell the story, because if we can't tell the story, people are not going to understand the need. So that's all we want to do at the end of it.
Balance.
The balance, And there's still times where I will see a certain post, or I may see a post on a social that's been posted, and I'm not happy with it, and I feel like, hey, I'm not too sure about this one. We take it down. Use something else. But as much as possible, again, the biggest responsibility on our hand is the protection of adults, so safeguarding of adults and children. That's always primarily our first responsibility.
I think what you forgot to say is, in most cases, we have beneficiaries that actually ask us to take pictures of them.
Cape Town,
So with their kids and stuff, and
they're
they
like,
want
would
to
that take
themselves.
a picture?
I think, but them doing it and us doing it and engaging them makes them feel quite important. They actually enjoy. You see laughter and smiles, especially when they see what they look like.
Exactly.
But that also comes with a responsibility, of ensuring that it portrays the right message, regardless of what's happening. And one story comes to mind. Shaheen's always in the middle of everything. Way back in the beginning, this was before we'd written any actual safeguarding or child protection and trained our staff in it, because our staff are now trained, where we went to a high school with the Tutu Desk campaign.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. See, he still smiles about it. And I'm busy, talking to the principal and some of the delegates that were there and engaging and, doing all of my things. And I turn around because I hear noise and I'm like, what's going on? And then I see it's Shaheen and he's surrounded by all these high school girls and they're all busy taking selfies with him. And literally, I froze because the first thing I thought of was, this could be seen as a violation of child protection.
Yeah.
Because now you have a grown adult male, in some cases overgrown adult males, but you have a grown adult male standing with lots of female, young, impressionable high school girls. And their intentions were probably pure also.
Wait.
But the highlight, the thing to take away from that is the immediate decision that has to be made on the spot to see how that could very easily escalate or how it could be taken out of context should one of those selfies get posted.
Exactly.
And that is always something we've got to be on our toes about.
Yeah. But the reality behind it was what?
With that specific incident that happened with not just high school, primary school as well. And one of the reasons for that was the teacher said it was the first time most of the kids met someone of a different color.
Wow.
Where they could touch and feel.
Yeah.
They've seen it either on TV or on the paper, but where they could like touch and feel.
But it's so rural, the area, that they could not have seen.
These high school girls, they haven't seen someone in like 10, 15 years. And for me...
It was enough for me to say to him, go sit in the car.
But it was quite traumatizing to know that a place literally 3.5 hours from Oa Tambo has never seen a different color.
Sure.
Yet we live in South Africa.
Yeah.
And this is not Central African Republic where you can't get to. This is 3 hours from Oa Tambo. This is South Africa. And you had communities that never met a different color. For me, that was mind-blowing.
That's proper rural, man.
Yeah, proper rural. Mind-blowing what's going on there.
So again,
there's context,
being responsible.
There's context to that story.
Exactly. Yeah. Tell the story.
Okay, so you know, okay.
All right, so we're going to end up just now. What are you going to end with?
Sure. So much to still talk about. We're going to have to come back.
Yeah. Part 2 will come back.
Definitely.
So, but I think from my side, I would just want to thank Allah firstly. I mean, for providing us the opportunity for our dreams that we have, being able to achieve these dreams in such a short space of time. And then I thank the team, from the managers right down to the staff, everyone that's involved, every effort that they make. I always say that, you don't know that one extra phone call, that email you sent is the one that's going to help that person who really was asking that day. Because in Cape Town, when I go specifically, how many times we hear people tell that one lady when we went recently in winter, she's like, I was praying for a blanket and I got a blanket today. Like that.
Came from a year.
What a dream, So I just want to end up saying thank you to everyone, really, and then every donor that's donated to us.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, all praise to Allah first and foremost. And then we have an amazing team. But a lot of thanks needs to go to our donors and to our haters, alhamdulillah.
They spur you on.
Because either way, they're still talking about us. So the penny appearance brand is still getting out there.
Right.
But to our donors have been an amazing bunch of people, brothers and sisters. A lot of them we have developed very close relationships with. And their support is unmatched, alhamdulillah. I mean, it goes to the point where, I'm too afraid to tell them, hey guys, we're coming to Johannesburg. Because then they'll be like, you're coming home, you're coming to stay here, you're coming to use this car, you're coming this, you're coming that. That's the brotherhood and the bondage we have with a lot of our donors. So alhamdulillah, may Allah keep that brotherhood and sisterhood going on forever, inshallah, and strengthen it, inshallah. Back to you, Shahnaaz.
Yeah.
Sure.
Last words.
Yeah.
Famous last words.
No, guys, you need to get me back on here. There's too much more that I want to share. But I think in closing, my constant dua is that I always pray that the Almighty doesn't take away this blessing from my life, and I suppose from your lives also.
Yeah.
The absolute blessing of being able to serve. It puts so much into context that I probably, if I was working corporate, I would never have thought or seen things the way I see it.
True.
So we give thanks to our Creator for opening our eyes and even, the unseen, for us to be able to feel those things and to see those little miracles every day. And more than that, I think, this sector is so diverse with so much to say, so many more people to help. I do believe that, I keep saying it and I'll say it again. For us here internally, it's always about renewing our intention and doing the best we can regardless. and understanding that sometimes we may feel like we're standing still, but we're not. There's greater things coming. And so being able to be patient with that process. And then to people out there, never underestimate the impact that you're having.
Yeah.
Every donation, every dua, everything all leads to a better world. So don't ever think that you don't have the power to change the world, because that's where it lies.
True.
And I'll share the rest in part 2.
Thank you, guys. It's an episode that's done, and we should definitely do a part 2. Shane, your final words, say thank you, and catch us another. You're gonna do what everyone says. Subscribe.
Subscribe, like and share.
Like a chair.
Like a chair?
Like and share.
Oh, like a chair. There's a like a chair. You gotta do that again, man.
Let's try that again from the top.
Yeah. So don't forget to say, hey guys.
Hey guys. Don't forget to
Oh God, yeah. Well, we're gonna get you into a
like
professional.
and share. Well,
Okay, let's try this again.
wait.
1, 2, 3.
In all seriousness, this has taken a year to put together. So inshallah, watch this space. We're coming to disrupt the podcast world. Inshallah. Positively.
Peace out.